Hey guys, you're watching Claritone Audio. I'm NaiLiK, and today we're going to take a look at making a kind of crunchy, wide, fat Psytrance bass line that you'll often hear in some progressive tracks as well as some full-on tracks. So here's what we're going to be making today. And if you want to stick around and learn how I did that, we'll set it up and go through the processing here in Cubase. So let's jump right in. So here what we have, I just set up a really simple offbeat kick bass at 140 BPM. So we're still using that kick from my first video, which is the how to make kicks in Kick 2 tutorial. And for bass, what we have is just a really basic bass patch right out of Serum. So for the bass, what we have is just a really basic Serum patch, and we have a little bit of processing here. So what we're doing, so I'll show you what we have first in the plugin chain. So we have an EQ, then I'm using this as saturation, which is HD2 from Plugin Alliance. It's a really good dual tube saturator. Then you have Transx. I'm only using the top two bands to kind of give it more transient in the high end. And then I just have a basic LFO tool sidechain. So if I play the bass, I'll show you what these two little cuts here are. So as we can see here, we're cutting the third and fifth kind of little bump. And if we look at them, right, so the bass line is in D sharp. And if we look at these like other harmonics, we'll see that we have some even ones and we have some odd ones. And what I mean by that is that they'll keep showing up on D sharp, which is where they should be. And then we have some of the odd harmonics that are on different notes, which you see like this one's like A sharp, this one's around G, so they're both around G. And that has nothing to do with D sharp, so I'm just kind of cutting that out a little bit. If we bypass them, this is what it sounds like. It's not a huge difference, but it's definitely clearing some of that unwanted kind of fullness out of it. Here's just a little bit of a boost up here. The first harmonic instead of the fundamental, which would be like the sub-E bass kind of frequency. And then here I just have a little dip at 540 because I felt like it was helping the kick come through when I cut a little bit out here. So together what we have is this. Alright, so now the first step is going to be to send both of these to a group track. So you can do that by sending them to a group track, but I'll just do it the really quick way here. So I'm going to create a group track. I'll just call it Kickbass. And then I'm going to highlight both of these. And if you hold Shift and Alt with multiple tracks selected in Cubase, you can actually kind of create like a temporary link to the next like buttons you're going to press. So if I temporarily link them with Shift and Alt, holding that, and then I change the stereo output, it'll actually do it for all the channels that are selected. So I'll just do that so I don't have to go into both individually and send it to the Kickbass group. And now they'll both be sent here. So if we solo that, we can see we've got a group set up like that. So after that, what I'm going to want to do is, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to add an effect. First thing I'm going to add is just Bitcrusher. So we can see now we've got a Bitcrusher, so we'll just call it Bit Wider. So that's the name of my send effect channel. So I'm going to increase the bit crushing here, the sample divider, up to like 4 or 5, 6 is generally like kind of the top range of where I use the Cubase Bitcrusher, because it gets a little bit too mangled after that. So we'll go with like 5 just to start. I don't know. I'll change the range to 3 because I generally find 3 and 1 to be the best ones, but 3 has a little bit kind of a extra bit of crispy high end on it. So the idea is that we want to put a bit crusher here, and then we also want to have some kind of like stereo width to the bass. So the first way we can do that, I'll just show you the way that the original way you can do that, but I'll explain why we don't do it that way. So the first way would be to use something called the Haas effect, which basically you use a stereo delay, or you delay either the left or the right channel by up to like 25. Maybe you can get away with 30, but I generally think around 20 to 25 milliseconds. Above that, you start to notice a difference from the left side and the right side. So it actually just kind of sounds like a delay or an echo. So we're going to keep the delay under 20 milliseconds. So let's try maybe like 15 milliseconds. And this way it'll be perceived as one sound by your ears, but it'll also sound wider because there is a slight delay in when the left and right ears receive the signal. So I'm just going to default everything else. I'm going to turn off this low pass filter, whatever. I'm going to turn down our feedback because we don't need feedback. I'll turn the high filter all the way up. So this would technically be called the Haas effect, and we can play with how wide it is. Maybe we can go up to 20 milliseconds. So I'm going to send the Kickbass group to this bit wider thing, and now when I turn it on, my send amount is my dry wet. So we'll just start to kind of introduce it, and we'll hear what it sounds like. Now if we go a little more extreme, just so you can kind of really hear what it's doing, this is what it sounds like. So that is really cool. The only problem is that because we're creating a delay from the left and the right channel, when this gets played back in mono, or if it gets summed in mono for any reason, you are going to have some phase cancellation, because basically think about it, if you had two sine waves and then you kind of bumped one on top of each other, and then you bumped one over to the right or the other one over to the left, and then you put them back over on top of each other, they're obviously not going to line up properly, and that's what's going to cause some cancellation in certain frequencies. So it sounds really nice, but there's a better way we can do it with some kind of like stereo widening plugin that doesn't mess with the phase or the timing of the left and right. So there's certain stereo widening plugins that we can use that utilize different techniques other than like time-based ones for getting a wider sound. So we're gonna try to use something like maybe the Brainworks Stereo Maker, which this one has a little bit of extra controls. So we have a mono maker, we have tone, which basically everything above, I believe, everything above this frequency you set is what's going to be affected. So it's kind of like, I don't know why they call it tone, but it should really be almost like a high pass filter. Then you have the actual amount of stereo expansion, and we also have a correlation meter down at the bottom, which we're going to want to keep between 0 and 1. If we start going towards the negative side, that means we're going to have phase problems, even if we're using this. So if we go to like the most extreme setting here at 300%, I'm sure we'll be in the negative side of the correlation meter. So we're going to try and use it now. I've bypassed our stereo delay, which is our Haas effect, and now we're going to try and get a wide bass sound using this stereo maker by Brainworks, which is going to be fully mono compatible and not mess around with the phase if ever your track gets summed or played in mono. So we'll listen to it again and raise up that send volume, but now it's going to be passing through this widener. And we'll also just adjust this stereo expansion, and keep your eyes on the correlation meter down here because it will start to drift over to the left the more I increase this stereo width knob. So it seems to be somewhere between 100 and 200% that you're still in like the green, you're still in the safe zone. So adjust that to kind of taste, how you like it. You can also put a bit more crushing on the Bitcrusher, or you can try sample division, whatever you like. That's about it for today's tip. So I really hope you guys like this one. I know it was a little bit of a faster one, quick little tip. We're going to get into some bass processing from scratch soon. And yeah, lots of new videos are going to be coming soon. So if you guys are liking the videos so far, just go ahead and subscribe down below. Click the bell for notifications. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.